Well, joining me in studio now is Melissa Moore. She's a media attorney from Section 16 to take a closer look at what exactly is going on here. Melissa, thank you for your time this morning. Firstly, your thoughts on this advert. You've watched it. Does it look like it might incite violence in any way?
I don't think it does, and I think that this advert really is political free speech at its best, and that is what we have fought so hard for in South Africa over the years, and it needs to be jealously guarded.
Now, the SABC deciding not to air this ad, does it have a right to do that? I mean, obviously all ads are paid for, as we know, in an election and in campaigning.
Indeed it does, but all those decisions with regard to the content and whether or not to flight it or not needs to be rational and reasonable, and specifically considering its role in a democratic society. It is a public broadcaster. It is not a state broadcaster. It is there to foster freedom of expression and political free speech, and it needs to represent the views of society as a whole. So the minute that those decisions are irrational or perceived or are biased towards a specific faction, then we're on a very slippery slope, and that could be political censorship.
Now, the route that ICASA has decided to take here in dealing with this issue is to hold those public hearings, and that's going to happen, or we're expecting a decision by the end of business on Thursday. The right way to handle this? Should they have made a decision? Can you make a decision without holding public hearings on an issue like this? Well,
I don't think you should be making decisions without hearing the parties involved, but the correct avenue is to go through the CCC. We've had other issues such as these against the SABC going to the CCC. So we should await their decision, and from there, if any parties are not happy with that decision, they can take that on review through the court system.
Now, how will a decision either way, depending on what ICASA actually decides and gives out on Thursday, how will it affect the election campaigns of all political parties in this election? Well,
I think it's a very important decision because it'll entrench the SABC's role in the, politics and in the election process. But I think that this advert has in fact got a lot of publicity already. Yeah. So I think we need to bear that in mind, and the censorship of it has already created so much awareness. And I don't think that there's anything in the advert that cannot actually be proved. So they need to keep that in mind. And the issues of violence, they seem a little bit disjointed, so they need to focus on that too.
And I think their argument is that the president has not been found guilty of any of these things in a court of law. Does that hold any water?
Well, whether it's reasonable to publish, there is a report that where an investigation has taken place.
A high-level report?
Yeah. A high-level report, and it's also already been through the court system, that specific report. So the courts have already said that it's okay to publish such statements. So, but they're more than willing or more than open, or they could take it through the court system again if they feel that any party has been aggrieved.
Just looking in general at the SABC's mandate as a public broadcaster in these elections, I mean, for those who are not in the know, what are their responsibilities and their duties during this time, the election?
Well, they have to report fairly, independently and without bias, and ICASA's role is very important in that, because ICASA was specifically set up, the IB at that specific point in time, to ensure that this happens. So there needs to be working together between these two parties and making sure that everything is fair and independent.
Now, in your experience, Melissa, what kind of decision do you envisage coming out of ICASA here this week?
I really don't know. I don't think we can presume at this point in time.
We'd
like to see I know what we'd like to see, and that is that the advert is not banned, because, as I said, it's political free speech at its best. But let's wait for ICASA and let's see what they determine.
All right, so Thursday close of business is when we're expecting a decision. Thank you very much, Melissa Moore, a media attorney from Section 16.
Know more about your world. eNCA.com